morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the National Institutes of Health Common Fund's Harnessing Data Science for Health Discovery and Innovation in Africa Symposium. My name is Maggie, and I'm here with Pulang and my other colleagues. We're from No Innovation, also known as KI, and it's the KI and Chi Storm. You used that to get here. We're the team of facilitators that specializes in accelerating scientific and academic innovation, helping researchers to generate exciting and novel research. So we are especially interested in the subject of this panel today, and we're delighted to be your hosts for the virtual symposium this week and next. Briefly, our agenda today, we have some welcoming remarks. We'll do an overview of innovation and entrepreneurship in Africa. It's a large subject, but we'll give a frame for the panel. We have a few featured guest speakers. We'll have highlights from our panelists. You've seen their videos and now you'll see them live. We'll have some question and answers and discussion by and with our panelists, and breakout sessions so that you too can have an interaction with your peers in the participant group. And then we'll have a plenary conclusion at the end. In order to start, we'll first have a welcome from Amit Mistry. He is the senior scientist at Fogarty International Center for Advanced Study in Health Science at the NIH. Amit.
Thank you, Maggie, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. As Maggie mentioned, I work at the Fogarty International Center at the NIH, and I just want to say welcome to this interactive panel on harnessing innovation and entrepreneurship in data science for health. As you know, this is part of a broader effort to launch the new collection of funding opportunities on this topic of data science and innovation coming from NIH. And the panels that we've organized for this week and next week will each focus on an important cross-cutting priority of the program, of the initiative. Yesterday, we highlighted the importance of partnerships, especially pushing researchers to think beyond academia as they think about the partnerships they need to put together data science programs. Today, our focus is on innovation and entrepreneurship. Today, we have a really diverse panel with representatives from government, from universities, and the private sector, all of whom are already harnessing entrepreneurship and innovation to impact health in Africa in a variety of ways. And our goal for today's discussion is to leave you with some ideas for how you can take and integrate innovation and entrepreneurship into your own data science research activities. So thank you again for joining, and I'll hand the floor to Pulang.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you so much. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Amit. And good afternoon, good morning, Dumelang, Sanibonani, everyone who has come to join us this afternoon. And just to build on what my colleague Maggie has said, we just thought about building on the experience that you're going to have on the call today. You might need a Zoom app. So if you have not joined us with a Zoom app, we highly advise that you download the app and rejoin us again. Otherwise, if you have any other technical questions, please feel free to go onto the Kilestorm page and just scroll down on the menu on the left-hand side, and somebody will be there to help you. And we have also collected a few questions for the panelists on Kilestorm, and during the session this afternoon or this morning, we'll give you a chance to leave some more questions in the chat, but for now, we're going to close the chat while the panelists are making some opening remarks, and we'll open it later for you to add your questions somewhere midway through the session. We're recording the session today. If you want to review the videos later, you'll find them on Kilestorm or on the NIH YouTube channel. And if you're on social media, if you tweet and you wish to use a hashtag on various social media platforms, on the screen we have a couple of hashtags that you can use: DSI Africa, hashtag DSI Africa, or hashtag NIH Africa Data, or hashtag No Innovation. So those are your three hashtags if you are on social media. Now I'll hand over to my colleague, Maggie.
Yes, so one more thing. We'd like to hear a few words from you about innovation. You'll see this here. This is the link here. We'll also put the link in the chat to a very short poll. Please, if you would take a moment to click through that poll and give us 3 words that you think best define, describe innovation. I'll give you a moment to do that. Please do the poll. The word clouds that we create with these polls are actually quite interesting. They're a rich reflection and a nice perspective from you, the participants of this session, in terms of what you think about innovation. We did one on partnerships yesterday, and it was really quite beautiful. You can see it. We'll put it up on the partnership page. I think we hope to do that. With that, let's get ready to get you to the panel. I would like to introduce you to the moderator of today's panel, Dr. Roger Glass. He is the director of the Fogarty International Center and the associate director for the international research at the NIH. Dr. Glass is a physician scientist with a distinguished career in global health research. And he's worked in countries all over the world, and in fact, he is fluent in 5 languages. He cares deeply about strengthening capacity for researchers in Africa, and he is a big champion of innovation and entrepreneurship in global health. Thank you, Dr. Glass, for leading this panel.
Great, and let me get started. If I can, and give you, I have a slide presentation, and I want to welcome you to this session. And I can share my screen. Great, I'm delighted to be here with you. And I want to give you a little background on how we at NIH decided to embark on this data science and innovation initiative at NIH, our next big activity to support research and innovation in Africa. About 2 years ago, we got together with our partners at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, and with our African partners at the Academy of Sciences and NIBIB, and brought them together with the idea that we are all investing heavily in research, the 3 original partners, and we're hardly making a drop in the ocean. We need much greater investment in science and innovation. How can we increase that space? And we challenged these African leaders in science to speak amongst themselves and give us their conclusions. They came out of their deliberation and they said, Roger, you know, NIH supports a lot of research in Africa, but research only publications. We think you should be investing in innovation, in new technologies, and data science that will lead to solutions, products, startups, companies, jobs, and economic advances. This is something that will really make a difference and will get the government involved. And with that idea, we began to think and reconsider. Now, at the same time, we were thinking that these innovations have led to a tremendous amount of new data, an extraordinary amount of new data from the rural areas and community health workers dealing with mobile technologies and child health and HIV screening and chronic care, new point of care diagnostics, again, lots of new data, infectious disease surveillance, again, the COVID demonstrates how much data is coming in rapidly, and genomics, precision public health, data again that will lead to activities. So because of all of this data, we realized that we really had a challenge ahead of us. Soumya Swaminathan at WHO, the chief scientist, said, you know, our analytic capacity is not keeping up with volumes of data being collected. Health data scientists are really needed, especially in low-income countries, to provide the relevant analysis and monitor progress. So this data science initiative grew up as a way in Africa, to spur innovation in data science and foster a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation among African researchers. So for this grant, we thought that applicants should go beyond just academia, just the research, and engage the private sector, governments, and others to bring ideas to scale. Well, in fact, necessity is the mother of invention, and we're all learning from African innovations. I think about Kenya, where your mobile banking has leapfrogged the absence of a long-established banking sector. What more could we do on that background of mobile technology for health? In Rwanda, the zip line has gotten into logistics of supply chain delivering blood and drugs to distant district clinics where you don't have good roads. Again, a life-saving technology pioneered in Rwanda, now Ghana. And in Tanzania, where research on bed nets demonstrated that bed nets could prevent malaria in families, they went from the research on bed nets to developing a bed net industry. And now much of their research in this industry is how to get better insecticides that have prolonged duration to improve the bed nets through technology, all businesses that derive from research. So in this grant, we hope to fund hubs for university hubs for data science and innovation. But these won't be the normal academic centers. We want there to be these to be multidisciplinary, not only health sciences, but engineering, data science and informatics, business backgrounds, ethics, and more, really multidisciplinary. We want to focus on major health priorities. Pick a major health priority where data science and innovation can make a real impact. We want you to partner with other African academic centers, but also American academic centers. Government has to be a major player in this. We can't have you go off in something that's not a government priority in health, a way to improve the health of your own people. The private sector has to be involved. This is where a lot of the innovation comes, where new jobs are created, and where export industries can develop, as well as the NGOs. So this panel has brought together all of you from really outside the academic center of DSI to think about how we do this. We have Andrea Gobin from Rice University, who's partnering with their institute and collaborating with Gregory and Teresa in Malawi, the dean and past dean of the School of Engineering, how they're developing new products around neonatal health, a real innovation in a continent where nearly 1 million children die in the neonatal period. We have Fadhili and Robert, entrepreneurs in Kenya, each working in the private sector to try to deliver care on an economic basis, on an access basis, and as they'll describe. And finally, I'm particularly honored to have the Honorable Minister of Science, Technology, and Innovation from Uganda, Dr. Eliota, with us to speak about why a Minister of Health is interested in investing in data science and innovation in his country, which already has a robust research platform with all kinds of new data coming in, but where he's working to convert, to translate these research advances to an economic sphere. So with that introduction, let me introduce the Honorable Minister, Dr. Eliota, to tell us why the government of Uganda is interested in investing in data science and innovation in his country, and where he hopes this will take you. Dr. Eliota, can you speak with us and tell us where you're going in Uganda on this activity?
Thanks a lot, Roger. Why is the government of Uganda interested in supporting data science and innovation in the data sector? Maybe before I say that, in addition to being the Minister of Science and Technology in Uganda, last December, I was also elected to chair the African ministers responsible for education, science, technology, and innovation. And I'm also privileged to chair the board of the Coalition of African Research Initiative, bringing together NIH, Melinda Gates, and Welcome, among others. Uganda has a comparatively well-structured healthcare delivery system consisting of clearly defined administrative and technical levels. However, the current structuring of Uganda's health system is not set up to efficiently harness the biomedical and public health data it generates To increase the efficiency and the performance of Uganda's health sector, the government believes that it's important to fast-track the establishment of mechanisms to leverage health informatics and bioinformatics. To achieve all this, it is important to develop expertise in data science disciplines such as artificial intelligence, algorithmics, and applied throughout the entire system. Data science technologies will enable the health system to capture public health data, medical data, and biological data, and process it, analyze, to drive insights that could feed back to decision making to design better interventions. And innovation in the health sector, as we know, is key enabling the health system to adapt to and tackle modern health challenges. So over the past 10 years, Uganda has taken major steps in the area of bioinformatics, and these include the development of local expertise in bioinformatics and the establishment of the requisite infrastructure for bioinformatics and genomics. With respect to the development of expertise, several Ugandans have been trained both locally and internationally in various areas of bioinformatics. Additionally, academic programs in health informatics, bioinformatics, and genomics are now offered in Uganda's top 2 science universities, that's Makerere University and Marwa University. We also have annual short-term bioinformatics training programs offered by various research institutions, such as Makerere College of Biomedical Sciences. With this program in place, we anticipate that the scientists and researchers that have trained will constitute the necessary critical mass required to accelerate growth of bioinformatics in Uganda. Now, when we come to bioinformatics infrastructure, there are now a few institutions with infrastructure capacity carry out bioinformatics. This can be segmented into tiers based on their complexity and capacity. There is what we call a tier 2 high computing facility dedicated to bioinformatics, which is in collaboration with MRC, Medical Research Council Uganda. And then we have 4 sub-tier 1 facilities, which are based on standard classification, but with the capability to carry out low volume bioinformatics research level work. These facilities possess the necessary equipment for genomic data generation, including sequencers and spectrophotometers. In addition, a number of biobanks have been established in the country. These two range in complexity and capacity. We must thank NIH because it's worth that mention that one of the biobanks that serve multiple countries in Africa, including H3 Africa Bionet Bank, based at the College of Health Sciences, Makerere University, is the largest in East and Central Africa, and is serving countries in the region and others in West and Southern Africa. This was established with the assistance of a grant from NIH, for which I want to thank you, Roger, and the team at NIH and Collins. While there is still a long way to go with regards to infrastructure, considering that the above progress has been made in the past few years, this can be viewed as a dedicated effort to develop bioinformatics in the country. What investments have we made as a country in the Genomic Center? Government has committed and established both physical and network infrastructure to house the Genomic Center and its supported concomitant systems. Now, having worked with our partners, we have also been able to set up high-performance computing machinery in the Genomic Center with capacity in excess of 2,048 data processing powers for more than is available anywhere in the water region. Also, its dedicated training programs have been instituted for the Genomic Center to develop a community of genomics researchers around the Genomic Center. It's worth noting that under COVID, my ministry, working through the Research and Innovation Fund, we have supported the Biobank to be able to produce vaccines, diagnostic tests, kits, and medicines. However, Roger, it's also important to note that the government, working with other partners, have been able to also focus more on biotechnology. And we are establishing a science and technology park focusing on biosciences. The science and technology park that we are putting up constitutes an area where the requisite technological infrastructure, such as research labs, technology development workshops, prototyping facilities, testing and analytical facilities, among others, are established in the same location to facilitate the entire product and technology development process. A fundamental feature of the science and technology park we're establishing is that it will bring together technologists, researchers, and knowledge generators with commercial entities in the same location, enable translation of research and development outputs into commercialized outcomes. For researchers and technologists, these parks will provide one-stop access to state-of-the-art R&D facilities, technology expertise, and others. Now, in order to focus on bio-based MSMEs, the park will act as a technology development platform which will facilitate and spur the growth of bio-based enterprises through developing bio-infrastructure for industry-specific applied biosciences, research and technology development, bio-entrepreneurship, bio-ventures incubation for industrialization, improved competitiveness, and decent employment creation. The proposed park will provide modern research equipment, specifically designed infrastructure such as nuclear magnetic resonance, proteomics, genomics, biomolecular research, drug design, biomaterials, nanotechnology, and advanced research in biosciences for and advanced applied biosciences R&D to generate scientific knowledge and technologies addressing national challenges for economic development and societal transformation. This science and technology park focusing on biosciences will also conduct strategic applied research and bio-based technology and enterprise development, focusing on the following areas. 1, commercial insects, including cell culture and apiary. 2, development of high value and innovative food products and processing aids such as food additives, enzymes, and bionutraceuticals. 3, livestock and fish feeds. 4, biomass-based renewable energy. 5, biofertilizers and biopesticides, biomaterials, biofibers, biotextiles. 7, biopharmaceuticals and biocosmetics, and then biocatalysts and enzymes, flavors and fragrances, microproduction for industrial and environmental applications, biodegradable packaging, and of course, bio-waste valorization. So in short, Roger, you can say that Uganda has made some advances in the area of bioinformatics. There is huge need. We have worked with NIH and other partners to train our people. The biobank that was established has been very, very crucial in COVID. And now in Uganda, we are already testing our reagents. We are working with USA and this biobank to even be able to produce primers for PCR using the facility established. Going forward, we're going to establish a park focused on biosciences that will help now the academia come together with industry, such that they move away from doing research only to become professors and publications after producing new products, producing new processes, and finally improving services to the extent based on biosciences. I thank you so much for the opportunity. I might not be able to continue with you throughout, and thanks so much.
Wow. Dr. Eliota, that was terrific. And it's clear that you are developing the ecosystem for biotechnology, this biotech park, to be able to capture all those investments in researchers and use them for a good impact. I can see now in the COVID epidemic, all of the reagents and diagnostics have come from outside Africa. And I sincerely hope that with the next epidemic, those reagents diagnostics will be coming from Africa. Thank you so much for joining us. And now let me move on to the rest of our panelists. That was a terrific presentation, Dr. Iliota. For our panelists, I want you to consider, we've seen your videos. Why do you think it's important for scientists to think about innovation and entrepreneurship in your research or in their research? And I will really start with Robert Karanja, the CEO of Villgro, to tell us how he's ventured into that private space to develop Villgro and what you're doing with that. We'll have 2-minute synopses, and then we'll be opening up for questions. Robert, would you begin and give us your key points from Villgro?
Good afternoon, good morning to all of you, wherever you are. My name is Robert Karanja. I am currently not the CEO of Villgro. I have now relinquished that role to my co-founder, who's going to be leading Villgro into the growth phase. My job was to really set up Villgro as a business incubation program, platform and early stage investment platform that's focusing on health and life sciences. My background, I am a biomedical scientist myself with a PhD in parasitology and entomology. And my story is basically one of being able to look at a lot of inventions that we've been able to create within our academia and realizing that they were not actually going to market and asking the question, why? And this led me to, of course, do a deep dive on things to do with intellectual property, and realizing that intellectual property in itself is really not an end unto itself. You know, it's just a tool towards something, and this something is innovation. And from our perspective as Villgro, the way we try to translate, to differentiate between research and innovation, because we are funders, a lot of people keep coming to us wanting us to fund research, and we say no, we can't fund research, we only fund innovation. So they ask me, so what is innovation? And for me, the way I interpret it is I basically say the output of your research, when you finally have that technical proof of concept for your idea, so you've basically done the inventive step. At that point, then we're able to come in with funding for innovation. And innovation now is to understand, how do you move from there? How do you now go towards, how do you go about translating it from an invention to a product? So there's a lot of product development that requires a lot of money, but there's also business development, understanding how do you how do you build a business around this idea? How do you create an entrepreneurial team that can complement you with the skill sets that you don't have as an academician? So we are very strong as scientists, as engineers, but we also need people who can understand finance, people who can understand marketing, people who can understand operations, manufacturing, and building a team that can be able to partner with you to take this vision all the way to completion is really what we do as a business incubator. Besides that, we of course do provide seed capital, and then we work with investors that come on alongside us to help you cross that valley of death to be able to really take this all the way to the end. And so that is in brief about Villgro Kenya, and very happy to partner with you and see how we can be able to make our ideas.
Robert, that was terrific. Thank you very much. And now I want to ask Fadhili Chacha Marwa, the CEO of Enzi Health, another entrepreneur, to tell us how you've gotten into this, your 2 key messages about why researchers coming together with are critical for what you do. Fadhili, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning and good afternoon to all of you. For us, it was just the basic call to serve Kenyans and to serve humanity. So one of the things that we noticed is that patients already have a lot of information through wearables and many other devices that are all over the place in households, in hospitals, and all over. But then what we know and what we see is that the future is a patient-centered healthcare future, where the patient is in control and in charge of their own health data and their own health needs, as opposed to the model that is currently being phased out, where the doctor had a lot of control over the healthcare of an individual. So if you notice, because of that, there's a lot of investment that has been skewed to curative healthcare, and very little has been done on preventive health. And yet we work with our health everywhere. So what we do at Enzi is to make sure that we can harness data to then start addressing some of these things. For example, how do we keep people healthy? How do we know that somebody needs to see a doctor? How can we use technology, harness data from that technology, and make sure that somebody's healthcare is taken care of? How do we categorize that data? How do we data map? Where are these people? How is this information flowing, and what can be done to bring all this together? So this is an incredible opportunity where where science actually meets the entrepreneur, because the entrepreneur sometimes is running too fast on the other end, and then there is the scientist who's researching too slowly. But then this is a perfect opportunity where we can be able to bring this to intersect and provide services to the people. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Fadhili. Great insights from you on taking data to people. Now we're going to hear from Gregory Gamula, the Dean of the School of Engineering in Malawi, and the recent past Dean, Teresa Mkondowiri. Gregory, 2 minutes of your key highlights of what you've learned and how you've integrated research into your engineering curriculum.
Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. This is Gregory Gamula from University of Malawi, the Polytechnic, together with my colleague Teresa Mkondowiri. Just a quick run through about how we have been embarking on building an ecosystem that fosters innovation in Malawi. Generally, we can say that this has mainly been accomplished through a collaboration that we have had with Rice University in the United States. This has been going on for quite some time, and through this collaboration, there are a number of activities that have happened. We have had a change of engineering education, which has brought about new ways of actually transferring knowledge to our students, and also generally changing how we actually do our teaching from the traditional teacher-centered form of teaching to making the student being at the center. And this has actually been accomplished through quite a number of approaches that have been enhanced through developing our faculty so that they actually make this a possibility. We are talking about emphasizing active learning by the students. We are talking about project scoping and needs finding. We are talking about problem or project-based learning. We are talking about issues of prototyping. And of course, to enhance and facilitate this, we've got a design studio that has been established at the Polytechnic, which is a space that is allowing both students and faculty just to come out and prototype or design things, and then just exercise their innovative imaginations and powers. We can say that also, generally, right now we are emphasizing that when the students have just come in right from first year, we are actually stirring them up to have that innovative mind to actually think outside the box on how they can actually bring about solutions to various issues that are surrounding them, especially challenges that are out there in the communities. And as a result of that, we have actually seen that low cost and robust technologies have been developed. We have seen our faculty being more aggressive in areas of research, innovation, and also participating in various activities. but also even looking at our students, you find that they're actually eager and they are actively participating in various competitions that are out there. And also they're taking part in internships and various activities that are allowing them to exercise and bring out those innovative minds and bring solutions to challenges that are there. As an example, we find that during this era of COVID, we have had PPEs that have been produced at the Polytechnic. We have had some walk-through decontamination unit being produced. We are talking of hand washing systems that are there. We're talking of automated hand sanitizers that have been made there. So a lot of things are happening just to bring about the innovation issues. Thank you.
Gregory, that sounds most exciting. Let us move on then to Andi Gobin, your partner at Rice in this project. Andi, give us 2 minutes about why Rice has gotten involved in Malawi with these dean and the recent past dean, please.
Thank you, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I would say we first started out in Malawi really trying to address a lot of the health issues when it came to both newborn and premature births. And we realized very quickly that just coming in and trying to change things in the hospitals wasn't a route to having a sustainable solution. And we realized what has to happen is that a partnership with the people of Malawi so that they can help generate their own solutions to these problems. And the only way that can happen is through education. And so we partnered with Poly to kind of really look at how do we encourage the youth to be more involved and feel and have the power to be in that position to actually solutions. What is most exciting is that the partnership that you see in Malawi is not just with academia. It is with the hospitals, it is with government, it is with NGOs. So it's that entire ecosystem of everyone that's involved coming together to innovate new ideas that work for their region. Because not everything, every glove fits every hand. So everything is very specific to their needs. And that's what's really exciting and successful about this program.
Terrific. What a nice description of this partnership with government, with industry, with a Malawian institution where you're changing training. We'll learn more about that in the question and answer session. Gives me great pleasure to introduce Bruce Tromberg, the director of the National Institute of Bioimaging and Bioengineering, and he's one of my partner leads on this DSI Africa initiative. I was delighted when Bruce came to NIH because I realized that he had had a long-standing interest in bioengineering in Africa and has been part of the Africa Spectral Imaging Network. Bruce works in biophotonics. I didn't know what that was before Bruce educated us, and I realized how essential this is to new innovations in engineering with so much going on in Africa. Bruce, tell us your story and tell us why entrepreneurship and innovation in your grantees is so critical.
Thank you, Roger, and good afternoon and good morning to everyone. It's really such a pleasure to be here and to work on this project together with all of you. I'd like to echo much of what's been said by the panelists so far and give a brief presentation on what the NIBIB, that's the National Institute of Biomedical Imaging and Bioengineering, is doing about engineering innovation and how we, of course, we're very biased. We believe this is foundational for the future of health. Just very briefly, what do we work on and what do we support? What kinds of technologies and innovations are we encouraging? Fundamentally, we work on what one might call data science, but we also call modeling, computation, machine intelligence. This is really at the core of all of the technology development that we do. And these approaches can be used to simulate or emulate biologic systems, or devices that are controlling or interacting with biologic systems, as well as extract information from measurements, images, sensors that we may have associated with patients or biologic models so that we can gain further insight into those systems. So really at the core of most everything that we do is data science, modeling, computation, and so forth. If you look on the upper right side of the screen, you can see one of the application areas is in engineered biology, and this is treating cellular systems, multicellular systems, tissues, entire organs as engineerable devices that can be potentially reprogrammed. If you look on the lower right corner, we develop sensors and point of care devices. These can be wearable sensors that are based on photonic or acoustic or electrical type of sensing, a variety of different mechanisms for transducing biologic processes into signals that can be measured and quantified. These are also rapidly moving into implantable areas where the sensors can be modified and they can be very specific for chemistries that are critical for monitoring and predicting disease. If you look at the lower left-hand side of the screen, you see that we're very engaged in supporting imaging technologies. These can span from devices that are at the bedside to very big physics imaging devices. And with increasing attention to innovation, computation, new materials, and costs, we can reduce the size and the complexity of these and still be able to extract very complicated and rich information content. And finally, in the upper left-hand corner, you can see that we are engaged in the development of new therapeutic devices. Many of these are completely non-invasive. Some are minimally invasive. Often they involve delivering energy into the body in very focused ways. They can be less expensive and have better outcomes for patients and allow one to do surgery, for example, without even using scalpels. What's driving a lot of this is the fact that we have access to technologies that are entirely new, and much of this is coming from the consumer device industry. In fact, there is a very thin line separating what we think of as consumer devices from medical devices, and we're seeing a convergence in technologies and their use. Many of the consumer devices are helping us prevent disease and go into home care settings. And this is increasingly true also for medical devices. We've heard this from our panel, and it's clear much of the innovation and entrepreneurial community is interested in leveraging this kind of technology, which necessarily will involve a lot of data generation, hence the great partnership between innovation and data science. One of the major programs that we've developed and launched in collaboration with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that's relevant to specific infectious disease in Africa is this challenge for developing a non-invasive device that would leverage those types of consumer technologies to diagnose, track disease state, and assess response to therapy for diseases of the vasculature, with a focus here on malaria, sickle cell, and anemia. And this $1 million prize challenge is a partnership between several institutes at the NIH, including the Fogarty Center and NIBIB, and the Gates Foundation. And it's specifically designed to drive innovation and commercialization and then widespread dissemination of this technology. We'll be announcing the winner of this award very soon. Innovation is also critically important for how we're addressing the COVID pandemic. Many of you are familiar with the urgent need for rapid point-of-care COVID-19 tests. And there's a big question as to how and when one can drive the development of those tests, when they'll be available for people, and how to expand their access. What we've been able to do is leverage an established network that NIBIB has created and supported for 13 years. We call this the Point of Care Technologies Research Network, or POC-TERN. Normally, this network, which is comprised of 5 sites around the United States, Georgia Tech and Emory, Johns Hopkins, University of Massachusetts, Northwestern, and CIMMIT, which is at Mass General Hospital. Each of these sites has unique and complementary expertise. Most are involved in global health. They have extensive networks and connections in Africa as well. But what this network does is develop new technologies that go all the way from identification of clinical need to standard of care in about 5 to 6 years. Of course, that's not fast enough for us in this current state. And what we've done is we've leveraged that network, all that expertise, people in the network, to create what's called an innovation funnel, so that we can accelerate this commercialization process for new point-of-care diagnostic technologies in 5 to 6 months. That's called the Rapid Acceleration of Diagnostics Initiative, or RADX. We've had nearly 3,000 applications started within this innovation funnel. There's several phases of review and funding and milestones that if your idea makes it into the funnel and begins to progress, it can potentially be de-risked and validated, and then ultimately receive enough funding for manufacturing and scale up. So a current snapshot is we have almost 700 complete applications. More than 100 have gone through a process that we call a deep dive, a very detailed analysis. 31 of these have been moved into phase 1, where there's validation and review and assessment of risk. And then 4 are now in what we call phase 2, where they've received sufficient resources to be able to scale up, manufacture, and deploy. So this is an exciting and very intensive way to drive innovation. And this type of model can be duplicated where you have the expertise to be able to encourage the submissions as well as the review and evaluation process. And finally, I'd like to just mention a network that I've been involved in personally that's led by Professor Jeremy Zoué at Ivory Coast. And this involves spectral imaging and spectroscopy and optical technologies. And it's evolved into a new training and education course where if you think of a lot of these technologies and the commercially available ones, and then imagine understanding how they work and repurposing them for new applications and optimizing their performance specifically for needs that are emerging in the population. And this type of program with its educational focus trains students on how to do this. So I'd like to just summarize. What are we doing in terms of technology and innovation? We believe that this is foundational for the future of health. Building technology innovation networks is the way to get there, and that's what we're hoping to do through our program of data science and innovation in Africa. This will help us understand, prevent, and detect disease, advance our ability to personalize diagnosis and treatment. Ultimately, this will extend health span and reduce costs and barriers to access, and finally, drive innovation. So I'll conclude there and turn it back to you, Roger.
Bruce, that was a lovely presentation, clear, and it's clear why what you're presenting could really make a major change in Africa, and much of the innovation could be done on site. So we'll have more of this in the discussion, but now let me turn this podium back to Pulong to give you the results of the poll and then to move on to the panelists for questions. Pulong, please.
Wonderful, Roger. As we move into the panel discussion, before we share the word cloud, I just want to make an announcement that we will open the chat for you to pop in some questions, and please feel free to add the questions into the chat. We'll do our best to address those questions, as many as we can. But before we do that, let's share the results of the panel. The results of the word on innovation as you'd like to see it. Fantastic. So on the screen, we have the result of the poll that we sent earlier on the 3 words that describe innovation and creativity. Creativity is our word that's got the biggest take. And then we have creative, we have novelty, useful, impactful, fantastic. And we also have words like awareness, simplicity, taking risks, movement of thinking, resourceful, progress, sustainability, impulse, life solving. This is all fantastic. Thank you. Looks like creativity is the big one. So thank you so much. Creativity, discovery, innovation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now I'll hand right back to Roger.
So let's go on to the panelist, and I'll as I ask you a question, I'm also going to ask you what 3 words for you best define innovation. But let me start the first question for Teresa and perhaps Greg. But Teresa, short answers. Here you are in a situation where you don't have a lot of equipment, facilities to allow students to be real creative. How do you manage that? Greg or Teresa, how have you gotten the facilities together to let them engage in 21st century innovation? Could you give us a brief look at that, and also the 3 questions or the 3 words that you think best define innovation for you?
Thank you very much, Roger. So for me, the key word that defines innovation is creativity, transforming ideas into products, into solutions. How we have managed to transform our engineering education at the Polytechnic is through the impactful collaboration we've had with Rice University. We started about 5 years ago. We entered into a partnership with Rice University, and we wrote a proposal. We got funding from Lemeson Foundation. With this funding, we're able to implement a number of activities. Key to this has been the design studio. So in the design studio, we have equipment and materials that encourage innovation. So for example, we have a 3D printer, we have laser cutters to enable our students to go there and prototype using the equipment. This has brought a huge transformation. Our students are now able to transform their ideas into prototypes, and they're able to try them out. And so far, we've seen very promising technologies, some of which are in use in the hospitals.
Okay, lovely answer. Let me have another question here for Robert or Fadhili. As you take products to market and innovations to market, how can you promote responsible commercialization? And also give us your 3 words, Robert and then Fadhili.
Oh, thank you. My 3 words were a mouthful. I think maybe take that first. To me, I call innovation the antithesis of research, because the processes for innovation are really very different from research. And so just to give me a clear demarcation, I think of it as the antithesis of research. How do you take knowledge outputs from research, which is new knowledge, and transform that to money, which in my head is the input for research, the research grant that allows you to do the science. So then in terms of how do we do responsible commercialization, I love that question because it's really very core to what we do. We really look at commercialization within the context of social entrepreneurship. And what do I mean by that? It's basically saying, how do you build an innovative company that's bringing to market an innovative product that's both profitable, scalable, but also is looking at the social impact. So how do you take the bottom of the economic pyramid and build a company that will not just provide a technical solution, but will also have an innovative business model to make sure your product is accessible, it's affordable, and it is high quality.
Great. And Kadila, do you want to respond to that one?
For me,
Fadhili?
Yes. For me, I think I agree with Robert about the responsive commercialization. And to me, how you really know something that is responsive commercialization is when it goes to the market and the market positively responds to it. That means that people are willing. So how do you then guard against excessive greed, then that's when we come back to the aspect of being socially responsible, so that yes, you're serving a need. We know that the market needs that need, but then how do you do it so that you serve the need, make sure that the market is served, but at the same time, the company earns a profit. Going to the three words, I think creativity, participation, and responsiveness. Thank you.
Okay. Let me ask one of Andrea. How do you're working at Rice, Andi, with all of these innovations? How do you get industry involved from academia? Is that a difficult challenge for you, especially in industries in Africa?
It is some challenge, but what we found is that if we get industry involved in the actual curriculum, they are more likely to be invested in seeing the outputs. So for example, if they see common problems in their industry that they want to see students graduating with, then being involved in the actual curriculum helps produce students with those skill sets. Another way to get industry involved is through design competitions. And Malawi has been very successful in having very large design competitions where students present their solutions that they have built. And these are usually typical working prototypes to really show their innovation and their ideology of how to solve these problems. And companies will come, industry will come and look at these solutions and are engaged more to be say, you know, I like this idea, I want to be part of that idea. And so that's another way to actually get more and more of the industry involved. So there's quite a few avenues, but it really is about just reaching out, getting them actively involved, not at just one stage, but multiple stages of the process.
Lovely. And since we're on this topic, let me go back to Robert, because Robert, you said that that innovation was the antithesis of research. So if we're going to try to get researchers and innovate and commercialization, the private sector involved, how do you do that? Do you, through Villgro, have active engagement with academic centers in Kenya?
Yes, we do. I think we cannot, in the health sector, the reality is that the research is happening in academia. That's where the invention is happening. And to be able to bring those inventions forth out of academia into the marketplace, where now they can actually have impact. We basically do two things. The first one is we're encouraging the inventors to realize that the job is not yet done. Once you've invented, the next step is now to understand how do you attract the private sector to come on board and take this idea, all the way. You need to risk it. So you need to wear to continue wearing the academic hat, but also wear an entrepreneurial hat. So how do you create a spin-off company that continues to work within academia in a way that leverages academia's expertise, infrastructure, and all of that to do a lot more product development, to de-risk it further technologically, validate that there is a market for your idea, think through a business model for this, and show some market traction. And then you normally find private sector will come in two ways. One is obviously as an investor to back the idea, but then ultimately, look, the industry that we're talking about, that in terms of, in Africa, we have a chicken and egg scenario. So if I'm developing a diagnostic or a vaccine, we don't have a lot of that happening, manufacturing happening on the continent. So the only way to do it is actually to create the industry from scratch. But that can only happen when the spin-off company builds the commercial proof of concept and then gets these other multinational companies to probably come on board, either to invest or to do a merger acquisition or something like that. And that's where you're able to now have a sustainable, locally based supply chain for the health technologies that we're using in our health system. So we do need to realize that invention is just the beginning of the journey. There's a lot to actually make that innovation actually scale or to actually come to life and translate to impact. And we need to continue to do so through the spin-off companies. And this is where we are looking at the inventor, because they have a lot of the know-how as a key part of that technology transfer to industry. So that is how we achieve the tech transfer from academia to the private sector, by the academia wearing the entrepreneur hat and actually beginning the early stages of the entrepreneurship journey, then checking out like I've done at Villgro. So I'm no longer the CEO. I actually have MBA guys that can come in and drive us into the growth phase, and I'm able to focus on the more technical features or the more technical angles of Villgro. So it's a very simple play, just playing to your strengths and then de-risking sufficiently for those who don't understand the hard technology to actually understand the business at least.
That lovely answer. Gregory, you're in an academic center in Africa. You have this new group of young students looking at entrepreneurship. What support are you getting from the private sector or from the government to engage in their creativity and support them both in the training and then when they go out? Could you give us a brief insight into that, what you've been able to accomplish?
In summary, I can say that the private sector is actually coming in to support in form of participation in our workshops. Just because I think they are able to bring in the aspect of from the other side. So they come in to participate in our various workshops that we do have. But also when we talk of the government, we've got quite a number of initiatives that are there, which are involving they're involving them supporting institutions of higher learning. The most recent development is an initiative that is being coordinated by UNDP in the country, which has brought up together all public universities in the country. And they are specifically, there's a committee that has been set up to look at issues of innovation and see how that can be advanced to benefit the country as a whole. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Great. Fadhili and Robert, how can people who are new to data science come up to speed on this topic? Are there opportunities for mentorship, collaborating with research groups like yours?
Actually, we do give a lot of chances to interested people, university students, and other interested young people who would want to learn and get to know how to use data science and from an entrepreneurial perspective. So there's a lot of that, and we benefit a lot from their energy and a lot of the new inputs that they bring on board.
Okay, and Robert?
Yes, so I think our role as Villgro is not so much as a research organization. We are the intermediary kind of organization. So we are working at the interface of academia and private sector. And what we're able to do is really to connect those who have an interest. If you're coming from the commercial side, you're really thinking more entrepreneurial, and you want to be able to identify some of the leading scientists in data science and all of that. We have an amazing network, not just across Kenya, across East Africa. We are doing quite a lot of work in Uganda, in Ethiopia, in Tanzania, even in Rwanda. We've done quite a bit of work there. And just by virtue of being focused in health and life sciences, we really love to be able to open up those networks for innovators and bringing in the multidisciplinary approach, because I think one of the key things for making innovation tick is really trying to, if you are coming in as a physicist, look for the biologist. If you're coming in for the biologist, look for the ICT expert, or like Bruce shared, people who are thinking coding and stuff like that. So how can we be able to create networks across disciplines, across private and public, across academia and private, is one of the things we'll have to do.
Great. I have a question for Bruce Tromberg. Bruce, in this COVID epidemic, you've been charged to help the United States develop diagnostics at warp speed. You know, overnight, we really have not had the diagnostics we've needed. And most of the diagnostics that have gone into Africa have come from outside. What has been the most successful means to stimulate that local investment and creativity to get diagnostics made in Africa for Africans and up to speed, if not for COVID now, for the next epidemic?
Thanks, Roger. I think our innovation funnel concept is actually applicable to everywhere and could be adopted in Africa by networks that can be formed and potentially stimulated by the DSI. One of the things we've benefited from is leveraging an established network, the POC-Turn network, in order to really accelerate the formation of this funnel and create so much activity in a very short period of time. But I can tell you that there is global impact in that many of these companies are not just looking at the US, they're also looking to expand internationally. This is a global health crisis. And through partnerships with the Gates Foundation, with the Rockefeller Foundation, with the FIND Foundation, they've been very collaborative and supportive of this activity. And I think much of this will expand into partnerships with African nations.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. You know, one of the partners we don't have in this group have been the philanthropists. And I'm thinking about Grand Challenge Africa, which has put out an annual call both for Africa and now in countries. Have you in academia or in the private sector access the Grand Challenge concept as another way that governments could stimulate innovation in your countries? Maybe Gregory, you could say something from the academic perspective, and Robert say something from the business perspective. Have those funds been accessible to you in building this partnership for innovation and data science?
Thank you, Roger. Yes, I would say that the funds have been accessible. Of course, not to the extent that maybe would have liked, but we are seeing increased access to those funds, and participation is actually also increasing, and even interest. But of course, we still need maybe to find more ways in which we can have more resources that can enhance the efforts that are currently underway. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And Robert, have you been able from the private sector to access a Grand Challenge funding? Is that something that, or other government funding because of the innovation? One of the reasons we've come to this and data science concept is that governments would be more excited to be involved. I don't think that Dr. Ilio is with us to speak to it, but have you been able to access greater government funding for this?
Let me say yes, yes and no. So for two reasons. So the first reason is because most of my fundraising work is geared towards our work as Villgro in terms of supporting the startups and the innovators. And then the other focus of fundraising is really geared towards funding the startups themselves. So for example, in Uganda, a lot of our companies have actually been funded by Dr. Elliot's Ministry of ICT. They do have an innovation fund, and we've been very happy to see them also co-investing with us in the startups that we are working with in Uganda. And also likewise for the Grand Challenges Africa, we do have quite a bit of convergence between, for example, the companies that we've invested in and the companies that Grand Challenges Canada has invested in. We are currently looking to see whether we can have greater convergence with in terms of Grand Challenges Africa. And I'm also sitting on their decision committee. And we just did recently the first transition to scale call for proposals. And so within that pipeline, I'm excited to see what's going to be coming out of that. And so to me, I think the critical thing to bring out is that there's a lot more funding for innovation, especially grant funding, which is great. It's not debt, it's not equity, so it's not diluting capital for innovators to take advantage of, both from governments and from the Grand Challenges Fraternity. Again, the Gates Foundation has been doing a lot of work on the continent, supporting a lot of innovators, and we've seen a lot of our companies also benefiting from Grand Challenges from the Gates Foundation. Even USAID, both the DIV, NIH, not directly, but we have some linkages, and also there's one more, there's 7 Lives at Birth, for example. So lots of opportunity. Now, when it comes to funding for us as Villgro, it is a challenge, and partly it's a lot more easier for me to tell the story of the impact that these startups and innovations are creating in the marketplace than it is to tell about the work that we are doing. But what we know for sure is that it takes more than capital for innovation to happen. It requires a lot of expertise in terms of the product development. As scientists, we're not trained on engineering and how to transition from the lab scale to starting to think of mass production. There's a lot of technical capacity that goes into that, and a lot of advisory services that they need. Navigating regulatory issues, the regulatory pathway across the different countries, again, requires a lot of expertise. And then ultimately being able to build an investment thesis for investors to be able to understand what you're doing, how can they invest in you, and how will they make their money back. All of that also needs to happen. And in terms of funding for that kind of business development support, venture building support, that is still fairly lacking.
Great, great, lovely. And a last question for Teresa and Andi. You know, in these hubs that I described, the academic center, this center hubs, has to go beyond engineering to other schools. I wonder, you're both involved with schools of engineering at Rice and in Malawi. Have you been able to take your platform of innovation and extend your collaborations or your partnerships to the schools of health science or to business or to law, perhaps for legal issues, or to informatics, schools that might be on the university campus who could provide those partnerships for you to extend from just engineering to this innovation platform, which is much broader. Teresa, do you want to begin? And then we'll go to Andi. Brief questions, because we're almost at time.
Thank you, Roger. So we work in partnership with other stakeholders. So we work with hospitals. For example, we are 5 minutes away from Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital. So the first time students arrive on campus, first years, we have an orientation week. We take our students to different industries. Those studying biomedical engineering, they go to hospitals, they hear from clinicians and doctors what problems they're facing, and then they take those back to their classroom as they prototype, as they design, they address those challenges. And we also have an industry partnership board where we have captains from industry who mentor our students. They bring in solutions, problems that we need to work on as our students are going through the engineering education system. So we work with different stakeholders, including hospitals and other partners, government as well. Thank you.
Great. And Andi, at Rice, do you work with other schools of business or of medical science, bioinformatics in your neighborhood that would support the hubs and the innovation projects that you're involved with?
Yes, so at Rice University, we're extremely multidisciplinary, especially within the Global Health Technologies Center. So we have folks involved from business, from law, from health sciences, engineering. So it's quite a wide spectrum. I will state though, in a lot of our faculty development workshops, we have opened it up to other disciplines to be involved. And two things have happened from this. The first of which is that faculty are realizing that they can engage with each other on different areas to bring their courses together so that they can connect. So health sciences are connecting with engineering. Engineering is connecting with mathematics. And all of these things are coming together in such a way to actually encourage faculty to present those problems across different disciplines. So not only is it happening though in the curriculum field, it's also happening now in the research. And so it's encouraging them to actually research together to join new ideas and come up with new innovative ideas. As one of the panelists said before, a successful business is not by one individual. It is truly sustainable when it's multidisciplinary and you have a team that really can look at something from multiple aspects. That is going to be the most successful, that is going to be most sustainable. And that's what needs to happen in academia to show that things can really come together and it's not just one person trying to tackle one specific problem.
Great. And with that, let me close the session and turn it back to Pulang and Maggie, who are going to set up these breakout sessions for you and tell you how that will work. Pulang or Maggie, do you want to step in and...
Absolutely, we're ready, Dr. Atlas. Thank you so much. And we really want to thank you and the panelists for doing such a brilliant work of responding to those questions and the interactions that you have shared with us and the knowledge and experience that you shared. I'm an entrepreneur myself and an entrepreneur in Africa. I might not be specifically in this field, but I had a lot to take away from those discussions and the way you responded to the questions. So thank you so much. Now we would like to shift the energy a bit into creating an atmosphere of interaction and engaging with one another. So we'd like to give you a chance to discuss with each other your reactions towards everything that you have heard and your own perspective and experiences with innovation and entrepreneurship. And while my colleague Joe is working on organizing you into small groups, we're going to ask you to start thinking about two things. The first, as you get into the interactive panel chats, we'll ask you to introduce yourself very briefly and then discuss the prompt. How have I been able to be innovative and entrepreneurial in my research? So the question is on the screen. You are going to share with about 4 or 5 people, how have you been able to be innovative and entrepreneurial in your own research? You'll have about 20 minutes to have this rich discussions with 4 or 5 people, and we'll send you some notices along the way so that you're aware of the time. Please make sure that everybody gets a chance to share their own story, to share their own perspective, and I'll hand over to Maggie to share some of the technical information that will help you.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes you might get into a breakout room and find yourself alone because somehow other people didn't make it there. Maybe they dropped out because of their internet connection or something, or everybody's video is frozen. Please know that you can always leave that breakout room and return to this plenary, and we'll be able to help you out. So look at the bottom of your screen and there'll be a button, a blue button that says leave room, and that will bring you back to this plenary. Or if you accidentally get bumped off Zoom altogether, you can always come back to this plenary room through KaiStorm, and we'll put you back into your group. And you need to know, in any case, anytime, go to the Need Help page on KaiStorm. It's at the bottom of the left-hand column. It's colored yellow, and somebody can always help you from there. So once again, you'll get into your rooms, introduce yourself quickly, talk with each other about the ways you've been able to be innovative and entrepreneurial in your research, and have a nice chat.
Welcome back. Welcome back. We see people coming in and arriving from the breakout sessions. Thank you, thank you. We already see some comments on the chat that people really must have had great discussions, met some interesting people. We're really privileged to work with this conference with many countries represented. We had 57 countries registered for this conference, so it's wonderful to see the cross-pollination, and we create experiences like this so that we continue to meet across the continent and different countries. So we hope you had some rich connections, you exchanged some contacts, and unfortunately we're too big of a group to get feedback from everyone, but we're very curious to know what came out of your discussions, any conclusions or ideas about inspiring innovation and entrepreneurship in your own breakout discussions. We would like you to please type some of those insights in the chat box, which is now open, and maybe your group discussions will benefit everybody else. So please type in some feedback for us. We'd love to see and read some of those insights. So use the chat box to share some of those insights. And with that, I would like to welcome Dr. Glass and the panelists back on the stage to answer any last questions and also share some closing remarks, while everybody else continues to share the feedback in the chat box. Dr. Glass, back to you.
Thank you, Pulang. Well, the panelists got together. We had a very exciting discussion of key messages, and I thought it was so interesting, different approaches from the academics, the business people, the minister, that I've asked each of them to give us a 1-minute synthesis of how they would envision best ways to harness innovation and entrepreneurship and data science for health in Africa. And if I might start with Greg and go on to Fadhili and Andi, and beginning, and then we'll end up with Rob, and we'll end up with Eliota. Teresa. Rob, Teresa, and Eliota. Greg, do you want to start? Gregory?
Yeah.
Thank you, Roger. 1 minute summary.
Yes, thank you, Roger. In summary, I would just say that data science innovation and across Africa presents an opportunity to enhance networks, which would result in synergy across the continent. And this would really bring around a lot of expertise together, and would actually come out with the innovations that will be going out there to have great impact across the continent. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. And Andi, and your key word, I think, was networking, if I could mention that. Andi?
Thank you. Yes, for me, I think the best way to sum this up is to build a strong network to gather the information to help support you as you go through your new endeavors. Do not be dissuaded by things you might not understand, but reach out, ask those questions, and build that strong network.
Great. Fadhili, you used the word steroids. Do you want to use that word in your summary minute?
Yeah, sure. For me, I think that collaboration between the academia and the entrepreneurs will fast track the development of products, and that's why I believe that this will see a phase where Africa will have product development on steroids.
Great. I like the steroids coming from a man who's not a physician, but a businessman. Robert?
Thank you, Roger. I think my keyword will be experience. We have a lot of youth on this continent. And of course, they're very creative, but it does take more than creativity to succeed. And especially in the journey of entrepreneurship, it takes experience in terms of being able to understand the industry's needs, the market, what problems are actually worth the effort to solve, and even having the social capital in terms of networks to really be able to drive that innovation. And my take-home message will be, please, for the academia, professors, don't let those students go out and create spin-offs by themselves. Work with them, be part of those startups, and bring the experience angle that's really needed from an investor's perspective to make them investable.
Mm-hmm. Robert, the other comment you added was the language of culture, that each of these groups speaks a different language. The businessman, the mathematician, the scientist, the government person. So having the right language of the culture would be important. I guess that's part of the experience. Teresa, you're supporting young creative minds. Tell us how you're going to do that.
Thank you. So we just need to encourage the young minds to innovate, to be entrepreneurs, because that's the only way we can change the status quo in Africa in terms of developing low cost and sustainable solutions in Africa for Africa.
Very well stated. And I think that the emphasis on young people tapping their creativity early is absolute, and empowering them that their creativity has value is huge. And let me end with Dr. Eliota, who's been working through his ministry to create the ecosystem for a bioscience park, for grand challenges, for other opportunities to support research in his country. Eliota, a final minute on your comments and advice to this group and going forward with this project.
No, for sure, I welcome the project. In as far as supporting creativity in Africa is concerned, Africa has very many young brains, young people, but when they grow up, they are looking towards USA, looking towards Europe. We have seen many of them dying in the Mediterranean Sea, which is very soon becoming a very good cemetery for the African young people. We must stop this. The COVID has shown that we need to develop our own capacities. It has shown the vulnerabilities of countries. And therefore, this is coming at the right time to ensure that in Africa, we can support our young people to stay here and also be able to tap into their creativity, have access to resources, become wealthy and become happy while we're here, as well as helping our continent to develop our own capacity to produce products that are needed and produce solutions to the challenges that we face as a continent.
That was terrific. And you've done an amazing job in Uganda. And in some ways it's a model, and yet we still all have a way to go. This to me has been an exciting session for all of us. You can just see the sun coming on my face here in Atlanta.
Are you enjoying it?
Yes, I'm going to get out of the sun here. It's been very exciting to hear your presentations, to think about the opportunities. To me, the unique part of this program will be the networking of cultures, for the hub to not only be a hub of bioengineering or innovation, but a hub that includes the business people, government people, the research community at the medical school or the health sciences, the people involved in mobile technologies, all of these that will really provide, speak the different languages, but working together will create the opportunities, the financing mechanism to make things happen. So on the one hand, it's getting the academic centers to get out of their silos and bring in the other schools on campus. The key capital for this activity will be the young minds who can be trained from an early age that their creativity can lead to products that are actually of value in improving health and improving society, and of keeping people in country. I think Eliot, that was the first time I heard mention of the emigration, but clearly emigration of scientists is a huge problem. And it may well be that through this entrepreneurship, developing of opportunities, you will be able to capture and retain some of the most talented people, like all of you who are on this panel. I'm sure you've all had opportunities to go elsewhere, but you found access and success in what you're doing at home, as well as huge value in your own country and in the region. You know, I think back on this COVID epidemic that's affected us all, and even in my own country, we haven't yet come up with diagnostics capable of providing the screening we need. The fact that in countries that don't have our resources will have to make do or come second is really an issue of equity. And we should help you to figure out how to do this together as we move forward, and how to create the opportunities so that with the next epidemic, you'll be able to work on your own diagnostics, your own interventions as well. This has been a terrific session for me, and I really have to thank you all for participating, for your active participation, for sharing your questions and your ideas and your thoughts, and for being with us at the very beginning of what we hope will be a successful competition for grants that will change innovation, these opportunities in biotechnology and improving health in Africa in the future. Let me leave it there and turn it back to the No Innovation Storm people to close this out, and thank you. I don't know if there are any other questions or chats that want to be raised, but if not, Maggie, take it away.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Glass. I'm sure there are more questions to be raised, but there'll be lots of time to do that tomorrow and next week as well. If you have any other questions about innovation and entrepreneurship, by all means, you could feel free to go to the Ask the Panelist Questions page on today's, in KaiStorm, under today's date, Wednesday, August 12th, there's a page where you can leave questions for the panelists, and why not leave more questions about innovation and entrepreneurship, or if you have any specific questions for them, you can leave them there and we will make sure that they get to them. I feel nourished, but I feel really nourished by everything that we've heard today, and inspired about the potential and possibility for innovation and entrepreneurship in Africa around data science and health. It's been fantastic. As we draw to a close, a few important things I'd like to share with you. First of all, I see things continue to go in the chat. I see some people talking about networking, and I think I'll speak in a moment about 2 opportunities coming up for networking. But I want to also remind you that if you want to save the chat, if you are in the group and you saw some really good questions and answers go by, or you saw some really interesting topics, if you go to the chat window and you see there are 3 little dots in the right-hand corner, if you click that, there'll be an opportunity to save chat, and it will save it on your computer for you. So I invite you to do that at the end of this, the very end of this, before you leave, if you want to keep track of any of the comments that were in the chat. Let's see, I'm about to put a link for you to see. This link will be in the chat, but I'm putting it here for you to see as well. Just to remind you, we really would appreciate it if on your way out, you would take this quick poll. It'll take really no time, but it just helps us know how the experience was for you today. And we care about your feedback, and we will use it. What else can I tell you about? Tomorrow. Tomorrow is the Partnership and Innovation Marketplace. So I'd like you to imagine that we were all together in Uganda in a conference center, and there was an expo place where people had stations and stands, and you could go around and talk to different people and visit and learn and connect with different partners and potential collaborators. Okay, we're going to create a virtual version of this tomorrow. We'll have open Zoom rooms for a number of partners who have submitted a request to be part of this. This is all going to happen within KaiStorm. And this will help you meet and explore potential partnerships and collaborations with other people who are part of the symposium. So we really encourage you to come. It'll be very free form. You'll be able to move around at will and go to different pages where there will be information to join different Zoom rooms and connect with people. We'll also have kind of a random, what we're calling the Markov mixer, where you can go into a room and just be randomly put with people for 20 or 25 minutes, much like we did in the interactive portion of this session today, and just see what kind of comes up with those random meetings. So if you're interested to know which partners are going to be part of the marketplace, I invite you to go to the page on KaiStorm that is called Partner Profiles. And the partners who are featured, who will have their own Zoom rooms, who you can go chat to, their profiles are changed to the color yellow now. So you can do a little bit of research to see who's going to be available for you to chat with, and maybe make your own list of people that you'd like to try to see. That's going to start tomorrow at 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Africa Time. So 8 o'clock Eastern Time in the United States, 3 p.m. Eastern Time in Africa on the continent. So that's the marketplace. We'll have partner rooms. We'll have some mixing rooms. We'll also be using the Network Lounge, which, based on some of the comments that are in the chat, could be useful. But I'll let Puleng tell you more about that. Puleng?
Oh, fantastic, Maggie. We have a wonderful function on KaiStorm that allows you to go into a network lounge. So if your conversation in the breakout room was interrupted and you were beginning to really connect, you have a space to continue that. Also, if you want to continue to meet other interesting people from around the world that you share the same subject with, you're welcome to use the Network Lounge. It's open 24/7 on KaiStorm. All you have to do is go onto the KaiStorm page and then find a Network Lounge. When you find it, click on it, you'll be able to visit the page, and then you can connect to others who you might find on the page already. Now let's talk about next week a bit. There are 3 more opportunities to have interactive panels on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesday next week. And all you have to do is go to KaiStorm again, to the live events, to see the lineup of panelists, of keynotes, and remember that you can preview the panelist videos in advance and see the interactive sessions. So on the screen, Maggie has shared already what's coming up next week. So Monday, we have training the next generation of leaders. Tuesday, ethical, legal, and social implications. Wednesday, we have data ecosystems and getaways. Please do go on KaiStorm and register for those and visit those events and watch the recordings that we have uploaded. And on your way out, please be sure to take a very quick poll that Maggie spoke about earlier, just to give us experience so we continue to improve your experience. See you tomorrow on the Partnerships and Innovation Marketplace. Fantastic. Have a great afternoon. Have a great evening for some of us in Africa. Thank you. It was wonderful to host you today.
Thank you very much, all of you. Really appreciated the organization and the logistics.
Thank you, Dr. Glass. You were a fantastic moderator. Fantastic. Thank you.
Wonderful people.
Absolutely. The panel was amazing.
Not only the academics, but the entrepreneurs and the ministers. It was terrific.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Glass.
Speaking the same language. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.